back again with the pod. Yeah, I want to review this book today. It's got a lot of knowledge and wisdom that I think you might find useful because I certainly have. And I think the part of this that I take away without even trying to remember like so many facts and examples is this thing he talks about when making decisions. You want to have the best thinking at hand to your disposal. And a lot of times we're often clouded by judgment or our ego, which I learned is, trying to preserve your self-image and really the image that you've created of yourself in your head, and acting towards your ego is something that, it deters a lot of success and a lot of examples. And you might not even realize it until you kind of really take a time to reflect. But if we turn into a couple parts of the book that I really enjoyed were, let's see what we got here. On page 32, you got this part about the zone of average, and it says it's a dangerous place when it comes to inertia. It's the point where things are working well enough that we don't feel we need to make any changes. We hope things will magically improve. Of course, they rarely do. For example, staying in a relationship that is too good to leave or too bad to stay is a perfect example of the zone of averages. If things were much worse, we would act. But since they're not terrible, we stay and hope things get better. Yeah, and that's a very good point, right? Because I think in life, you might find yourself really comfortable at that job, which I think is actually very cool. And I think it's really important to find yourself comfortable in a job. But let's say you work at Google, you're making the same amount for 7 years already, and you want to move on to the next thing, but you don't know what it is, and how could it ever get better than Google? But you limit yourself, right? And that's the whole point of zone of averages is, you're limiting yourself to the environment you're in or the people you're around. And I guess just sticking with what that's why it's important to branch out and meet new people and expose yourself to different ideas and different, parts of the world, or, different people to do business with, or people to meet and have in your inner circle of friends, right? Like that's so important. But let's dive into a little bit more of what it says. But inertia closes minds and stifles the motivation to change. And inertia is kind of that resistance, or that, as you can tell, like the invisible force that prevents progress. A very good point that I read here is inertia also prevents us from doing hard things. The longer we avoid the hard thing we know we should do, the harder it becomes to do. Avoiding conflict is comfortable and easy. The longer we avoid conflict, however, the more necessary it becomes to continue avoiding it. The weight of what we avoid actually affects our relationship. Maybe you ditch Taekwondo class as a kid and you got to go the next week, and you just don't want to go because you have it in the back of your mind that you ditched it already. So it just keeps growing, right? I found that important to note. To get the real value out of any book, you do got to read it. Don't chat GPT it or Audible it, although those are acceptable for short-term things. But yeah, you just really absorb knowledge better when you dive into a book like this. This book, I give it like a 10 out of 10, really. I think it's one of the best books I've read in recent memory. With an English degree and someone who's in the process of writing a business book, I'd like to say I know a thing or two about books. It's hard to remember how to apply this to daily life too. The point is really just exercising good judgment. When you come across a challenge, you kind of do come across like these internal doubts that you may have of yourself. This book does go into how you can perceive yourself better, and not only yourself, but also perceive and have better perspective. Let me find some good parts of the book. Try to make this quick. I know you guys got other shit to do. Action is a little bit hard to take, especially when the results are not guaranteed, and you might make a fool of yourself or be so hard on yourself. But that's again going back to the ego, and you got to be aware of that. And think about what you would do, or decide to think about, or who you would be without an ego, right? You would just be somebody who doesn't necessarily feel the negative effects of losing or not getting what you want. You wouldn't be afraid to attempt things if you didn't have such a big ego, right? One reason we fail to take action is that we're scared to deal with the consequences. It's not so much that we don't know what to do as we don't want to deal with the reality of doing it. We don't want to have conversations because they might hurt somebody's feelings. We don't want to fire that person we like, even though we know they're wrong for the job. Our egos conspire with the social default and the inertia default to weaken our resolve and keep us from doing what we need to do. But that's not the only reason we fail to act. Another big reason is we find action hard that we're afraid of being wrong. Inertia holds us in the place as we gather more information in the false hope that we can ultimately eliminate uncertainty. That's deep. I would even reread this book just because I feel like I read it in bits and pieces and not really like fully put it together. Drop in the comments like what books do you guys read, or anything like that. And if you guys are up for it, I've got a book coming out with Penguin Southeast Asia. Yeah, it's called Starter Mindsets, and I'd love for you guys to subscribe and at least look into buying the book. And if you already are subscribed and you want to buy the book and help me out with that, an aspiring YouTuber and author, it would mean the world to me. Let's keep going. Margin of safety is pretty big. Warren Buffett does is he attempts to buy stocks that are 30% less than their market cap. So don't pay close attention to the dollar on dollar for stocks that he understands well. If the cost of failure is low and the outcomes are consequential or less consequential, you can often reduce or skip the margin of safety. The longer something exists and performs well, the higher the probability that its pattern of success will continue. If the cost of failure is high and outcomes are more consequential, you do want a large margin of safety. The margin of safety is often sufficient when it can absorb double the worst case scenario. So baseline for a margin of safety is one that can withstand twice the amount of problems that would cause a crisis, or maintain twice the amount of resources needed to rebuild after a crisis. It's really just hard to explain like the breadth of knowledge of this in like a short video, but I'm gonna do my best. There's a lot of stuff that goes into empowering a team and being an effective leader and helping others make good decisions as well on your behalf. So learning how to do that, you just can't do it without people next to you. One thing I really found valuable, and I'll perhaps leave you with this final note that I've discovered in the book, is it says, whatever decision you're facing, ask yourself, is there a way to make sure that I stick to the path I've decided is best? By thinking through your options and pre-committing to your courses of action, you free space to tackle all the problems. I think this is really important too, just to have that level of commitment and discipline to the action. When you're a solo entrepreneur, or you want to say up and coming artist or whatever, and you got to communicate with people, and you're dreading that because you don't like doing that and it's a pain in the ass. I mean, this really just goes into how to stay committed. Like maybe you lock yourself in a room, or you lock your phone in a box and you can't use it until you do the task. That really does give you some sort of tie to the action that you're required to do. Think about it at work, right? Like you're working for somebody 9 to 5, and they say have this to me by the end of the day, or you want to go lay down on the couch and watch TV, but if you do, then you're gonna get fired, right? And as an entrepreneur or single person company, you don't want to fire yourself. So I guess you just get stuck in this kind of like middle ground, right, where things don't move, the needle doesn't move, and you want to just make sure that needle moves a little bit every week or every day even, in the positive direction. So I think just using safeguards is something that you can incorporate into your day-to-day. I'd love to bring it up right now, actually, if I could find it. A very great point on page 205 was the fail-safe principle, and I think this is very essential in daily life. So we're here and we're talking about the fail-safe principle, right? He talks about this Greek myth of Ulysses, and Ulysses, he was the captain of a ship, right? He and his crew were navigating close to the island inhabited by the sirens. These were dangerous creatures that lured sailors to the island and their deaths with a song so beautiful that it drove crews mad with longing till they ran their ships against the rocks trying to reach its source. Ulysses wanted to hear the siren song without risking the lives of his crew. Now, I'm not saying that Ulysses had made a great decision here if he'd really thought through his options. Using the principles and safeguards I've outlined, he would have steered clear of the island. But that's not the part of the story I love. What I love is that Ulysses implemented fail-safes to ensure his decision was executed as planned. He stuffed the ears of the crew with beeswax so they couldn't hear the song as they approached the island. And to prevent them from changing course, he had them tie him to the mast so that no matter what he said or did in the madness of the song, he couldn't influence them to change the decision he already made. He also instructed them that the more they struggled and insisted on changing course, the tighter that they should bind him. Ulysses' clever implementation of execution fail-safes that allowed him to hear the song while ensuring the safety of his crew. Of course, fail-safes are indispensable in a lot of other contexts too. That's such a fucking beautiful thing. Sticking to decision and not relying on your willpower to, get you there. I mean, I think this is seen evident in daily life, right? When you say you want to go to the gym or you want to meet up with somebody, but then you just come up with a fucking excuse like it's too cold outside, or I'm lazy, or I don't feel like it. And how would you apply that into your daily life? You can, that's something I got to come up with in an amount of time. Maybe you hire a personal trainer and you're committed with the money and you don't want to see it go to waste. So you pick a time early in the morning that you want to do, like 7 a.m. And let's say you're waking up, and I guess it's going to be a hard thing to change, but if you're putting something at risk at the same time, you don't want to lose it. And you don't want to lose the money that you invested in the training. So maybe that will make you want to go more. There's ways to increase the rewards, and that way you'll want to make decisions to reach those rewards. But don't forget the fail-safe principle. That's it. What up, guys? If you like that little detailed book review, leave a comment, like, and subscribe. We're gonna try to run this up, do YouTube more, and peace.